just go to Florida. We don't.
Oh yeah, baby, let's go to Florida, gang.
Squiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, in a demonstration of solidarity, our government is voicing a strong and clear support for Motion 103.
Hey gang, we went into the archives for this one, like, assure you that. Check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, in a demonstration of solidarity, our government is voicing a strong and clear support for Motion 103. J'annonce officiellement que notre gouvernement appuie sans réserve la motion M103 déposée par la députée de Mississauga EhrenEmm, IQRA Khalid. This motion, introduced by my colleague IQRA Khalid last December, recognizes the need to counter all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia. Motion M103 is about ensuring that in Canada, we stand for free and respectful exchanges of ideas and opinions. And there is no place for hatred and no tolerance of abuse. In recent times, we have seen disturbing acts of intolerance across Canada, including racist graffiti found across Ottawa and posters encouraging hate posted in a number of our cities. And of course, the attack that occurred in Quebec City on January 29, which shook us deeply. Attacks on a place of worship and reflection go against everything this country stands for. J'étais fière de voir les élans de solidarité partout au pays à la suite de cet événement tragique qui a eu lieu à Québec. We stood united in the face of this tragedy, and while we may suffer our own challenges, we overwhelmingly reject the politics of racism and exclusion. The outpouring of love and support shown by the people in Quebec and throughout the country following the days of what happened in Quebec City is the best representation of our country. Notre premier ministre l'a mentionné à plusieurs reprises, nous sommes forts à cause de notre diversité. Les Canadiens nous le démontrent jour après jour par leur ouverture et leur attachement à l'inclusion. Prime Minister Trudeau has said it many times, diversity is our strength, and I'm proud to be able to witness it every day. And our government is committed to building a diverse, inclusive, and welcoming society that promotes respect for all, regardless of face, race, or ethnicity. Nous sommes plus que jamais déterminés à bâtir une société ouverte, inclusive, avec comme principe le vivre ensemble, le respect et la lutte à la discrimination, qu'elle soit fondée sur la race, la religion ou l'origine ethnique. Merci. And now my colleague will address you for your words.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Minister, for your support and your leadership on this. On December 1st, 2016, I tabled Motion 103 to ask our government to initiate dialogue on combating systemic racism and religious discrimination by way of a study. Racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia, have no place in Canadian society. Our government and our Prime Minister have been leaders on these issues of inclusion and combating prejudice from day one. We know that our diversity is our strength, and we need to ensure that we continue to build on that diversity. Close to 70,000 signatures on an e-petition 411, sponsored by MP Frank Baylis and signed by Canadians from all walks of life, asked the government to do more to combat Islamophobia. Thousands came out in support of our Muslim community following the terrorist attacks in Quebec City. This motion reflects and echoes those voices in the House of Commons. Over the past few weeks, I, along with some of my colleagues, have been the recipients of hateful comments. This strengthens my resolve to continue to combat this issue. Motion 103 would ask all parliamentarians to stand together to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. If the motion passes, the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage would study how the government could develop a whole-of-government approach on reducing and eliminating systemic racism and religious discrimination, and to contextualize hate crime reports so Canadians can understand what is happening on the ground regarding hate crimes. This motion, while it names Islamophobia, is broad in scope to include all marginalized communities, hence the very title of the motion, Systemic Racism and Religious Discrimination. Thank you.
Because they fear for freedom of expression. Some people say that with such a motion it will be impossible, for instance, to criticize the niqab or some aspects of the Muslim of Islam. What's your answer to that?
Well, this is a motion, this is not legislation, and I would be the first person to oppose anything that infringes on our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This motion is about having a study on how we can tackle important issues like systemic racism and religious discrimination in Canada. It's calling for a study, it's calling for a dialogue amongst Canadians.
But what do you say about those who say it will be impossible from now on to say, I'm against the niqab, is it?
No, that is not true.
So there would be no problem talking about Sharia law, female genital mutilation. That would, that's what people are saying, that they would be concerned about speaking out about some aspects of Islam.
This motion has done something that's very important. It's created conversation. It's shown us that there is a lot of work to be done when we have these conversations on inclusion. And we need to combat these issues by having this study. And we need to recognize that we have a problem and we need to tackle it head on.
Well, it is an important motion because it's following a petition that was signed by 70,000 people. It's also following the leadership of my colleague IQRA Khalid. And more than that, we need to make sure that every single citizen in this country feels included. And so that's why the Parliamentary Committee will be tasked to study everything in line with systemic discrimination and also Islamophobia.
Where are the teeth? Where are the penalties? What's the point of another study? Where are the teeth?
Well, it will be an important parliamentary process, and following the recommendation, we will study these recommendations and pursue our work in order to have a strong anti-discrimination program as a government.
Given it's your motion.
There are Conservative MPs who say they approached you about amendments and you told them that you needed to go through Cabinet for amendments to your private member's motion. Can you explain that?
No. We have had support from all MPs from across all different parties on the wording of the motion as it stands today. We've had support from organizations from all across Canada on the wording of the motion as it stands today. We have had support from Canadians at large on the wording of the motion as it stands today. By watering down the words of this motion is not in the best interest of all of these people. I look forward to debating in the House of Commons today on these issues and concerns, and I look forward to the committee studying these issues going forward.
Over the last few weeks. Can you tell us a bit about the content of them and they were directed about M103?
I can tell you that this is Islamophobia and racism and discrimination is an issue that we need to deal with in Canada. It is real, and when we acknowledge it, when we address it, and when we start to tackle it by creating a study, by bringing Canadians to the table and asking for their input, I think that we are going to help quell some of those fears that Canadians have of each other, and I think that we can work together and strengthen the diversity of our country.
Would you like your own government to denounce the fact that a kid on a trip heading from Sherbrooke to cross the border was yanked off a bus, interrogated for hours? Would you like like a strong denunciation of that?
Look, this motion is about strengthening our Canadian diversity. It is about working together. It is about standing up to intolerance. And I really look forward to discussing these issues in the House today.
Madame Joly, vous avez toujours pas répondu.
I'm very confident that my colleagues will be able to support this important motion. And I'm very happy to see that there will be strong support. Of course, my colleagues can always vote in favor or against, depending on their own beliefs, but I'm very happy to say that there will be a very strong support.
Last question.
Over this has been the definition of Islamophobia, perhaps the idea, some of the critics say that it's giving Islam special treatment. How do you define Islamophobia, and why isn't it defined in the motion?
The definition of Islamophobia is the discrimination against Muslim people and people that are of Muslim faith. So this is the clear and unequivocal definition.
Would you be willing to remove the word Islamophobia from the motion? Some MPs have said they'd support it if it didn't have that word.
My colleague presented a motion. We're supporting it. It includes all systemic forms of racism and Islamophobia, and I'm proud to say that we are taking the right decision.
Thank you so much.
In this piece, Melanie Joly is testifying why she sold out Michael Chong. Or for lack of better words, I'm saying sold out. She has a different explanation. Let's take a look. This is Melanie Joly. Hard to find this testimony anywheres. Here she goes. Something's up.
So my questions are going to be about the decision to declare Joe Wei persona non grata.
Yeah.
And to understand a bit more about why that happened and why it happened when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to just start with some PNG basics, if we can call them that, and you covered them a bit, but just to go over it. I understand that the power to declare a foreign diplomat persona non grata is a power of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Is that right? And just if you can say yes for the records.
Oh, oui.
And when Joe Wei was declared persona non grata, that would have been your decision then?
Oui.
Okay. And in their testimony,
Answer, yes.
Global Affairs officials referred to declaring a foreign diplomat persona non grata as a last resort. And I understand that you have diplomatic tools that lie on a spectrum, with some that are less severe, and then PNG would be one of the most severe. You'd agree that it's generally considered a last resort?
Oui, pour différentes raisons.
Yes, for various reasons. Because not only is it a strong diplomatic message, but it's more for that because there are repercussions. So if we carry out an action, China will respond, or the other country will respond. And Canada's goal is to never lose a diplomat in another country, because we lose eyes and ears in a country to which it's difficult to have access, and where the media reality is very different. And so it's a way that someone helps people understand how things are done in China and how we can defend our interests in China. It depends on these diplomats. So it's always important to know, before we expel a diplomat from Canada, we have to make sure the reaction will be proportional. So if we expel one person, so another person will be expelled, not 2 or 3. And you saw that with India, 41 were expelled. And secondly, how we're able to ensure that there's not just expelling our diplomats, but also that there's not a much broader repercussions, so job losses because there were economic sanctions. And I've already mentioned that earlier.
You want to be sure that you have a strong justification before taking this last resort step. Is that fair?
Oui, mais dans le cas de Zawi, la position est...
Yes, but in Zawi's case, it was untenable. He had to leave. So it was more, when was he going to go? Because in my mind, it was clear that he had to leave.
In that particular case, you recall that on the 1st of May, 2023, the Globe and Mail had reported that Joly was engaged in targeting my client, Mr. Chong. And then between the 2nd of May,
yes,
Mr. Chong and other parliamentarians raised this issue repeatedly in question period, and they called on the government to expel Joly. Is that something you remember?
Oui, tout à fait.
Okay.
Je me souviens même d'une...
Yes, I do remember. I even remember of one parliamentary committee meeting where I appeared, but I don't have my agenda with me. So when that was happening, the war in Sudan just broke out. So I left and I went to Kenya because the previous weekend I tried to work with the Americans to ensure that our diplomats had left Khartoum, which was now a battlefield. And after that, I worked for the evacuation of Canadians in Sudan, and I worked to ensure that they be sent out. So the question was, do we use Canadian Army planes? I was working with Defense Minister Anand at the time, and we wondered if they would be evacuated from Khartoum, which was it safe enough or not, or Djibouti and Kenya. So I spoke with my Kenyan counterpart, so we made sure that the Canadians were sent to Kenya, and I went to Kenya to make sure that that departure was going well, because we were in a situation of crisis. So I don't think that I was present at all the question periods that you're referring to, but I know that I came back from Kenya, and then I went before the parliamentary committee the following afternoon, and there, Michael, your client, asked me, why is that person not PhD? In my mind, the decision had already been taken, but I answered, dear Michael, the decision does not just involve you, it's also the various repercussions. And I said, I told it 5 times, I've said this 5 times here, the repercussions for Canadians in China, for jobs, and for diplomatic personnel. So I agree with him that it's unacceptable and that he has to leave, because we have to make sure that it's no longer a threat for the country. But at the same time, the issue of knowing how to get there and how we can analyze those things. So then I work with the department, and then the expulsion takes place on the 6th, and on the 7th he's declared persona non grata, and then the 8th we learned that our diplomat Jennifer Lalonde has also been expelled from China.
Fundamentally, what I'm wondering is if you would agree that one of the key reasons underlying your decision to PNG Mr. Joly was the PRC's targeting of my client. Would you agree with that?
Je pense qu'à l'époque,
Yes, I think at the time I'm asking for that information because Zawe is a problem, but I understand that my deputy minister said that he didn't know that but I decided that he had to go.
In relation to Mr. Chong, is that?
il a fait de l'ingérence étrangère.
He was accused of foreign interference, that's it. So any diplomat that doesn't respect the Vienna Convention and that has done it repeatedly, and it's a pattern, at that point we have to get rid of him. My goal is not to protect foreign diplomats in Canada. It's to protect Canadian interest. Zawe is not respecting and not protecting. He's in violation of the Vienna Convention.
It was made to look to the media and to the public and to Mr. Chong himself that this was a response to the PRC's targeting of him and his family. The Globe reports it on the 1st of May. He gets a TRM briefing on May 2nd. He raises it repeatedly in the House of Commons, and then on May 8th, Joly is on his way home. So surely to a reasonably informed member of the public and to Mr. Chong, they say it's because of what was in the Globe that Mr. Joly is sent home.
Bon, je pense que
I understand that that's the public's perception, but this was the first time I heard about the situation. And I told that to a client recently. Foreign interference, how can I say that? It's not a partisan issue. I find it horrible what happened to Michael. And this should not happen to any politician, to any member in this country. We are a democracy. We should be confident and know that we do have our place as a citizen. So despite all this suffering from Michael, if this allowed to create this commission and GAC and CSIS, if it allowed to create this situation, then there will be something good that will come out of it. And this is my perspective. And what I also told my colleague, that it's not just about China, it's also India, Iran, all those countries, when they do things and they are targeting parliamentarians or members of their diaspora, this is even worse. This is completely unacceptable. And when this happens, we will react. I do not see foreign affairs as a political battle. Foreign affairs, we are on a higher level, and we are responsible for Canadians' interests. And I am leading the foreign policy of Canada to protect Canada.
Morrison testified that CSIS had shared intelligence with Global Affairs on Joly at least as early as 2021, but it did not go beyond what he called the working level. Is that your understanding of the movement from intelligence to GAC as well?
So if my deputy minister said that, I guess that's the case. I was not informed. So the way my cabinet is informed pushes me to ask the question to the clerk, to ask the question to the minister, and I ask them, are there any other diplomats that are problematic? Because I need to be aware of that. And I was not informed that there were any more problematic diplomats. And I have no recommendations right now as to if there are any diplomats to expel.
Received that intelligence earlier. We know it was from 2021. You wouldn't have needed Mr. Joly's name to appear in the Globe and Mail before acting. You could have acted earlier. Is that fair?
Oui, tout à fait.
Okay.
Exactly.
Il y a plein de mesures.
You know, there are so many diplomatic measures that I take each day, each month, and they do not feature in the media.
This hadn't appeared in the Globe and Mail, you wouldn't have been able to know about it, and you wouldn't have PNG'd Joly at the time.
Ça, Max, c'est une question qui est hypothétique. Je sais pas qu'est-ce qui serait passé.
This is hypothetical.
Was put in the Globe and Mail.
Ça, c'est un fait. L'autre, après, si je l'avais...
That is a fact. However, many other things could have happened. But yes, I do understand. With this article, I am aware of the situation and then reacted.
Puis je pense aussi que l'ingérence.
I also think that foreign interference is getting worse and worse because there is an international security crisis. I know that in the frame of this commission, we are analyzing what's happening in Canada, but I also see what's happening outside of Canada, what's happening abroad. And I am comparing with other countries too. I think it is important to work together. The goal of autocracies is to have impact on our democracy and on our citizens. So the whole democratic model is at stake here.
Morrison said was that Mr. Joly's position became untenable that was his word, untenable, after the Globe and Mail reporting. And what I want to suggest to you that it wasn't the Globe's reporting that made Joe Wei's presence in Canada untenable. It was his conduct in Canada that made his presence untenable. Isn't that right?
That is my interpretation. For sure, there was a violation of the Vienna Convention, and that is why that person was targeted. So yes, I agree.
And again, if you had known about his conduct earlier, he would have been expelled earlier.
J'ai répondu à cette question-là, oui.
Okay. Those are my questions.
I answered that question.
See?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
All right, gang, the video wraps up right there. Her testimony did finally end. I've got 4 hours of this woman that is at least stressed. I think it's something else. Who knows? What do you think? Leave it in the comments. My name's Aaron, Canadian Looney. We watch the daily broadcasts of the question periods. Come and join us for one of those shows. Great chat room, great community. We make other videos too. Like, subscribe, share, get notified, all those fun things. And that's it. Please leave a comment below. We'll catch you next video. Melanie Joly, it seems like it's adding up. Catch you next video.
So, hi everyone, good morning. What a great day for Canada. Are you passionate about stuff?
WTF. Here, here. Okay, good day. Welcome to the Great White North, aka Canadian Corner. How's it going, eh? Bob McKenzie, my brother Doug. Today our topic is dog scoops.